So what I want to do is talk about probably the greatest crime in human history committed by Christians. Now, when we talk about it as committed by Nazis. But the population of Germany at the time, in the 1930s, was about a little over 60 million people. And nearly all of them were Christians. A third were Catholics, 2/3 were Protestants, and nearly all of them were Christians. In the same way that people here are Christians. They went to church, they worshiped Jesus, they did everything Christians would do. But then something happened, and they turned in this direction. The very large numbers of them committed one of the most horrific crimes in all of human history. A genocide that we now come to call the Holocaust. About 11 million people died, about 6 million of them Jews, and not just in Germany, because there weren't very many Jewish people living in Germany at the time, so all the surrounding areas, right? But something happened that these good, God-fearing Christians that are no different than the vast majority of Christians that any of us know in here, something happened to capture their thinking that allowed them to do something so horrific. If something could happen like that could happen to average, ordinary, good, family-loving, community-loving Christians there, then it could happen here. And if Christians did that, then they're no different than the Buddhists in Myanmar killing the Muslims, because it means it's in all of us. So I can no longer hide behind this idea that, well, we don't do that. So I'm going to show you a video from Dachau. Now, I stopped for a long time. I stopped showing stuff and talking about the Holocaust, because it just seemed like so many people had seen videos, and so you kind of knew what happened, and people saw the images and so on. But then I got to the point, really, maybe quite a number of years ago, I realized a lot of y'all in your generation have never really seen the images. But I'm going to walk us through the video as we watch it. And by the way, this is a Jewish couple, and so the way they identify, the Nazis identified, not just in Germany, but in the other countries where they had taken control. They identified who the Jews were. They had to have stars.
Somebody said that your proposition is totally wrong, that at the time all of Europe was Christian, yet they were against the Holocaust.
There's nothing in Christianity that makes Christians more violent than anybody else. My point here is that anybody can engage in violence, the likes of which I'm going to show you right now. Doesn't matter. For those of us who are Christian, as an example, we can't hide behind this idea that, well, we don't do that, because our love of Jesus would keep us from doing that. You can't hide behind that. You can stand behind it. And other Christian nations in Europe were fighting against the Nazis. That's not the point. So listen, this is Dachau. What the Nazis did, once the final solution came, first off, they rounded up Jews all over. Again, there weren't many Jews in Germany, but the idea was as they took over Czechoslovakia, as they took over Poland, as they took over different places, the point was to go in and find Jews and round them up. And you got to put them in camps. And you had two reasons. The first reason to put them in camps was so that they can work for you. Slave labor. So you have all these camps around. You have them in Germany, you have them in Poland, you have them in the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia at the time. You have them in lots of places. We had camps. The Germans built camps, and the first thing was, we're going to get them to work for us, and they're going to do these things. And then, once the final solution comes around, then the idea is, well, ultimately we're going to kill them, because we're going to exterminate Jews. And so, these are all images of the camps of Dachau after it was liberated. And these are Jews who came from really all over Europe. 6 million Jews were killed. Not all of them were taken to camps and killed. In Poland, for example, most Jews were simply rounded up, taken outside of communities, and summarily shot. Mass graves, about 1 million Jews in Poland were killed. So they were brought by trains from all over Europe. And, increasingly, conditions were terrible. People died in the trains, crammed in the cars, crammed in the cattle cars. All done by Christians. Keep this in mind. These are all Christians who are doing the killing. Now you can say, but they're not really Christians because real Christians wouldn't do that. That's fine. I agree with you. I absolutely 100% agree with you. Just like the Muslims who are doing killing, like in ISIS, you're not really Muslims. So here, these are all people pulled out of the cars because they didn't make the journey, and their bodies are going to get buried. And I just want you to watch the images. Millions upon millions upon millions of people. It's just immensely disturbing to think that human beings could do this to other human beings. And I've been at a couple concentration camps, right? Like I've seen this with my eyes. I've seen where it is. Who could do this to another human being? Anybody. It's happening all over. Just look. They built these gas chambers because, it's really difficult to get rid of bodies. So they decided, well, we're going to burn them. And so they would, people would hang their clothes on the outside. These are the prisoners who, once they decided, okay, we're just going to start killing all the Jews because we have no need for them anymore and we want to exterminate them. We want to get them into dust. And so here's like the bath. And then, on the ceilings, they would put the gas would come down. So the prisoners would think that they were going in to get some kind of a bath. And then the Zyklon B, the gas would come down and they would all be taken out. And then they would be put in what would be ovens. But who were the Nazis? Well, the Nazis were Germans. Who were Germans? They were Westerners. They were advanced Westerners. They were advanced in their thinking. Germany was one of the hubs of philosophy of the world. This is what they found when they opened the the ovens after they liberated the camps. I'm not attacking Christians. I'm just pointing out the obvious. This is what the liberators found. Some of you, maybe your mostly grandfathers, although maybe your grandmothers, who were part of the liberation. And the scary thing is, it's honestly, when I look at everyone in here, and then I think of myself, and I want to think that I couldn't participate in that I would have been one of the people who spoke up. I would have been one of the people that said no. I would have been one of the people who put my life on the line to the Nazis, to the other Christians around me, who yesterday are going to church with me and today are out doing what? Rounding up Jews? To kill them? I would like to think that I would be the one who would say no. That's not going to happen. But the truth is, I'm just going to sit with the rest of you. It doesn't matter what your gods say. It's irrelevant. In the moment, any of us can be one of those people who just throws caution to the wind, takes on the cloak of hate, and becomes that person who can do that to other human beings, including Christians. In the moment, you can become one of them. And that's like frightening to me. Here's a rally at Nuremberg. This is about 1 million people, a Nazi rally, and they're all Christians. They're all Christians. In church on Sunday, rallying and saluting Hitler and the SS on this day. Wow, what changes? What changes? And had Germany been a Muslim nation, it's different. You see, what happens, right? And I talked to Jews about Palestinians in Gaza who turned to the dark side. And I talked to Christians who turned to the dark side. So, here's just a couple things just to show you. Here's Hitler with a couple of German cardinals. These are Catholics doing the Sieg Heil, right? Kind of making sure he doesn't quite get it right. And here's a Protestant. These are deacons. And this is a Protestant gathering in 1933. Look, there's the swastika. These are all Protestant deacons. These are leaders in the Protestant churches. One of the things I mentioned about, Christianity, and you really have to understand the degree to which anti-Jewish ideology was built into Christian theology. So just those of you who are Catholics, this was the doctrinal teachings of the Catholic Church up until the Second Vatican Council. So all the Jews in Palestine were responsible for the execution of Jesus. All Jews currently living are responsible for the execution of Jesus. And God rejected Jews because they murdered Jesus. And it was only, this is part of the Good Friday service, that perfidious Jews which means untrustworthy Jews. They only took that out at the Second Vatican Council. So you understand, it wouldn't take much if you're taught about Jews killing God and weaving this into the theology, Christian theology, and not just the Catholic Church, but the Lutheran Church. And if you know anything about Martin Luther, you know that his teaching, it's as if Adolf Hitler took all of his Nazi ideology and the final solution right directly out of Martin Luther's teachings. And if you're a Protestant, you owe your Protestantism to Martin Luther because he is the very first Protestant. He is the person that broke away from the Catholic Church. This didn't just come out of nowhere. This is part of the teachings of Christianity. It wasn't just chance that in Germany, when it came time when Jews were selected to be the group that would be extinguished, that it was them and it wasn't somebody else. You say okay, well, but this isn't happening today. Well, it's not happening. It is happening today. Anti-Semitism is happening today. You're maybe just not paying attention. So let me just bring something out to show you how deeply rooted it is in our society. If people responded to anti-Semitism the way we respond to things that happen to black people, things would be very different. So this guy right here, so he's a fairly popular minister and talked about two methods to convert people to Christianity. He was doing a sermon about, well, there are two ways, and one is the fisherman approach, but the other is the hunter approach. And to hunter, when you fish and you fish and you fish, but that person refuses to take the bait, then sometimes you just got to go and hunt them down and you have to kill them. And he quotes, and the Lord says, and if they won't respond to grace, I, the Lord, am going to raise up the hunters. And then he says, and the most famous hunter of all was a hunter sent by God, and his name was Adolf Hitler. He's a close pastoral friend to this guy, who's a senator and was running for president. And when this came out, this guy's running for president. So this is one of the most powerful people in the United States. And this is what he said. Well, I'm grateful for his dedication and his call a generation of young people to prayer and spiritual commitment. And Heidi, that's his wife, and I are grateful to have his prayers and support. And with the support of Mike and many other people of faith, we'll fight the good fight, finish the course, and keep the faith. He didn't say, hey, listen, you essentially are saying that God gave permission to hunt down and kill Jews. He's still a senator. He didn't even have to disavow the guy. That is how deep anti-Semitism is. Do you have people? You don't have anyone in Germany saying stuff like that. That's illegal. That would be illegal to say that in Germany. Am I right?
That would be illegal. Yes. That would be prosecuted post haste. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for coming. Any final words that you would like to leave us with?
Resisting the Nazis was mostly fatal. But there were still people who did it. And I think that is absolutely amazing. In Berlin alone, there were about 7,000 Jews that were hidden by German families or German individuals. And about half of them survived. And the people who were hiding them, they risked their own lives, they risked their families' lives. And that I think is absolutely amazing. You don't hear a lot about it. Or all the other small groups that were working within Germany all through the Third Reich. They were there. They were just doomed to failure, mostly.
I was just curious as to what it would be like for Jews who came back from the concentration camps to live with people who basically kind of disowned them.
Well, so many people did not stay in Europe, just could not stay. First off, they lost everything. The anti-Semitism, the hatred of Jews didn't go away. So this is, of course, the emergence of the state of Israel as a homeland for Jewish people. And of course, somebody else? Anyone? Who else?
There was a tweet. Pretty much it's just saying that you're ignoring the fact that it was a lot to do with World War I. And I've seen this in the comment section on YouTube a lot. You're ignoring the fact that World War I had an impact. Economics had a lot of impact. But what people aren't remembering or aren't realizing is that those are pillars to why Nazism happened. were the base of all of the understanding that Nazis believed, or at least, the ones who actually had power. They were the ones that were Christian. Most people in Germany were Christian. That's why we keep pushing Christianity and saying that Nazis were Christians. Not that Christians are Nazis. So we can't make those parallels, but you have to understand that the baseline is Christianity. That's all we're saying.
Meaning that Christianity doesn't protect us. And yes, a lot of us stem from perception. They controlled all of those things. That was all part of it. That's all part of the hatred of Jews, yes.
I was just going to say, we talk about it not happening in America, but there's actually a social experiment that was done called the Third Wave, which I don't know if you've ever heard of before, but it happened in 1967, and it kind of explains actually how the Nazi movement got its movement, and they actually recreated something a lot like it in a high school, and it got so bad that it actually needed to be shut down by the police, and it's just really interesting that kind of goes in line with a lot of what we're talking about. So
yeah, there have been a lot of experiments to try to understand how it is that average ordinary people could do such things.
Okay, well, I'm Christian, but it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that, like you were saying, that if we feel like it's not present in America, every time you hear someone say you're such a Jew, that's anti-Semitism. If you're making fun of someone's nose because they're Jewish, that's anti-Semitism. They may come in forms of microaggressions, but it's still definitely a thing here in America that we see.
Yeah, it's still around. Thanks for that.